So what's it going to be? Joining me now, Florida Congressman and House Judiciary Committee member Matt Gaetz. Welcome back, Congressman.
Oh, thanks, Kennedy. Good to be back.
So which scenario do you think is more likely here?
I don't think we get out of this with a win-lose. I think that both sides have to get something. That's why I was supportive of Senator Lindsey Graham's proposal to allow TPS residents, a lot of whom came here from, Haiti when there was a terrible earthquake there. They came from war-torn parts of Asia. Now they own businesses. They've been here for, in some instances, more than a decade. And I don't think the people who followed the rules and followed the law should have to go home while people who came here illegally get to stay. And so finding a solution for those folks, maybe providing a 3-year temporary work permit for DACA recipients in exchange for wall funding that starts with a crooked number. That seems like something that could get us all out of this, but I've shared with the president, I've also told Democrats, it can't be a win-lose because we both have to work together to move the ball forward.
Yeah, and everyone's too dug in, and there's too much hubris in order for anyone to admit loss here. But Lindsey Graham and Joe Manchin have been talking about DACA, TPS, and a $25 billion comprehensive package. Do you see anything like that gaining traction? Because it seems really dumb to go through this process every time the wall needs more funding.
Yeah, well, and if you do recurring funding for the wall, then you have some sense of stability to be able to get the job done. I would support that. I think that makes sense. Like, why would the American people not want to have a solution that provides some semblance of security on the border, makes our neighborhoods safer, ensures that we're able to have rising wages in this country, and that also creates some opportunity for DACA recipients to be able to work and contribute to the economy without a pathway to citizenship. So I like that. I don't know who's against it, but here's my problem, Kennedy. Like, where is the Democrat plan for border security? We've heard all Democrats from Senator Barack Obama to Dianne Feinstein to Sherry Bustos and John Sarbanes in the House say border security is important. So if that's true, why don't they have a plan that would secure the border if wall is offensive to them? What is the idea that gives some sense of security to American families that our country's not going to be overrun?
If you were a Democrat, what would you do?
If I were a Democrat, I would want to win. I would want to go back to my district and say that we did something that was reflective of those priorities. And look, Nancy Pelosi stood up with her astronaut underwear diapers and gave a 17-hour speech or whatever it was on the DACA recipients. So why couldn't we do something that's not a path to citizenship, that's not an amnesty, but that brings people into the economic fold and allows DACA folks to work while at the same time doing border security? That gives Democrats a win. What's the win that they want to give us, Kennedy? What is it that Democrats have offered Republicans that make us feel more confident that there's going to be a physical barrier at the border?
Well, you do have, what's interesting is you do have moderate Democrats who come from districts where the president won in 2016 who are saying things like, can we just figure this out because my constituents are calling me and they're very frustrated because there are parts of the country where progressivism doesn't necessarily win the day. And you also have a lot of lawmakers from border states that we haven't heard from. And I'd be very curious to see what those Democrats have to say about all of this. I mean, I know in California, it's very obvious what they're trying to do. Gavin Newsom and every other California politician with national aspirations is looking at this as a way to consolidate more power by having a future pool of guaranteed voters, by giving away as much as possible to illegal immigrants now, which is fine, but at least be honest about what you're brokering, because you have a lot of people in that state who don't share the same zeal.
Well, that hubris is why it's so hard to get a deal. And how are we supposed to negotiate with people that tell us that a wall is racist and immoral? When my colleague David Cicilline was asked why a wall was immoral, he's a Democrat from Rhode Island, he said, well, you'll have to ask Nancy Pelosi that. So she's actually getting out further on her skis than her own members are. But how can we get to a compromise if they voted for wall money last Congress and now they're saying a wall is immoral?
Here's what you have to do, because you have some hardliners in the Republican Party who don't want to hear anything that even sounds like the word amnesty. And you have progressive Democrats who think that ICE should be abolished. So it seems as though you have coalitions more toward the middle in both parties, and you guys have to work together. So instead of calling each other names, why not figure out a few deal points like Lindsey Graham and Joe Manchin are doing?
No, I support that deal, and I'm laying out things that I think would work. Spending more money on ports of entry. Democrats actually support that. There's a lot of Democrats in these border towns that would like to see an investment in the ports of entry. So that's yet another deal point that I would propose.
If you're really talking about drugs coming into this country, they don't come in through holes in the wall. No one's going to risk losing hundreds of millions of dollars in illegal drugs through some hole where a CBP officer can come steal their stash. They're driving and they're flying and they are tunneling. They're doing all this other stuff. But what we have seen is legal cannabis has cut into the cartel's profits and it's hurting them. What about eventually making legal other substances in this country? Because the demand isn't going anywhere, no matter how you try and affect the supply.
Well, what you're absolutely right about, Kennedy, is that because we have democratized legal cannabis, the cartels aren't moving marijuana over the border to the same degree. They're moving fentanyl. They're moving heroin.
Yes, why
are
they moving
cocaine.
All that stuff? Because
it's illegal.
No, it's not because it's illegal. Well, yes, because it's illegal here, and they can't sell cannabis like they were before. So if we make a shift and realize that people are going to buy it anyway, so it's better for people to buy something when they know what's in it, as opposed to something that's been cut with God knows what, including
Listen
fentanyl.
to you making an argument for freedom and libertarianism. Your 9 o'clock viewers are not disappointed. Yeah, no, this whole notion that, when we actually empower people, we get better outcomes across the board and we make all our problems easier to solve. I asked Kristen Nielsen, that's head of Homeland Security, because you see this data that says legal cannabis in the country reduces violence, reduces cartel activity, why don't you take a position in favor of it? And she said she would take that under advisement. So the linkage between the policy decisions we make here and the incentives for cartels to bring drugs across our border is so obvious to people. And by the way, like,
it's very obvious, and
why should Republicans and Democrats disagree on that? I don't think we should disagree.
I mean, that is logic, that is data, that is truth, that is cause and effect, and we got to conquer one issue at a time. Congressman Matt Gaetz, thanks for spending some of your time here.
Thank you, Kennedy.